Welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. While many states are struggling to pay salaries and clamoring for a reduction of minimum wage, one state in particular continues to thrive. A state nicknamed the nation's paradise and home to Africa's biggest street party, also known as Calabar Carnival. Cross River State has become the tourism destination of Nigeria. With proper financial management and planning, Governor Ben Ayade has been able to pay salaries and invest in infrastructure, even in the face of Nigeria's economic downturn. On today's episode of the Osasu Show, we'll be speaking with the Commissioner of Finance from Cross River State, Mr. Asukwo Ekpenyong, who also happens to be one of the youngest commissioners in Nigeria. Stay tuned. Mr. Asukwo Ekpenyong, Commissioner of Finance in Cross River State, thank you for joining me on today's program.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell me more about your interest in politics?
It's not so much as an interest in politics that led to my being in this position. It was more about my love for finance and economics and the work I had done before this. So it was not so much as a political appointment as much as an appointment which was of merit and to contribute to the well-being of Cross River State. Awesome.
So you played a key role in the election of Governor Professor Ben Ayade.
No, that's not true. I didn't play a key role.
No. So you weren't part of his election campaign?
I was part of his campaign team, but when you say played a key role, you make it...
What role did you play in his campaign team?
During the campaign, we worked on his manifesto. We worked on his economic blueprint for the state.
That is a key role, considering the current state of our economy right now.
No.
So being in charge of the manifesto, which obviously has to do with the economy of Cross River State, so everyone in that state would hold you accountable if they're not paid salaries.
When you say in charge of the manifesto, I was in charge. I played a role.
Key role, yeah.
I played a role. So I was one of
I see you're very modest.
Yeah, I tried to be. I was one of people that contributed to it, but I wouldn't want to say I played a key role.
Played a key role. So why do you think he appointed you Commissioner of Finance?
I think
that's a very integral position.
I think when we sat down and we discussed, we saw what the future was like. We saw the bend around the corner. I mean, the current contraction in the economy was something that we had started witnessing before even the assumption of office. And I think most of the strategies that we tried to put in place, I think he kind of liked the ideas and how we're going to raise revenue, how we're going to solve most of our financial issues. So I think he entrusted me with this responsibility at that point in time when he realized I could make a difference, bring something to the table.
What is the plan for the Bakassi people? These are people who have been marginalized, displaced since 2008, and not much has been done to rebuild their communities. So as the Commissioner of Finance for Cross River State, what key roles and economic attributes and infrastructure have you put in place to ensure that the people of Bakassi are rehabilitated?
Well, we've been working very hard in the communities around Bakassi. You're very right. The judgment and what followed after was very unjust and has brought a lot of untold hardship to the people of Bakassi. Cross River State, under the administration of His Excellency Senator Professor Ben Ayade, has tried to redress this injustice. We have been communicating with the federal government. We will be looking to try and seek a revisit as to that judgment and also to highlight the negative and adverse effects that it has done to its people. In the interim, we're trying to do as much as we can for the people of the affected communities. We're trying to provide shelter, trying to provide certain basic amenities to alleviate the hardships that they are currently experiencing. We will continue to do that until the time as when the federal government may come in to intervene properly.
Okay, do you have any succinct plans in place? Because we hear a lot of politicians say trying to, but no one actually, we hardly find a situation where they have a plan, pen and paper in place for the people and the rehabilitation of those people.
Well, we're currently working on a social housing scheme for the people. When you say pen to paper...
Social housing?
Yes, social housing for the people of Bakassi. When you say pen to paper, His Excellency has signed off on a memorandum of understanding for the provision of this social housing scheme for the people in the affected communities, as well as other infrastructure projects we're trying to do around the area. Most important of which is one of our signature projects, the deep sea port. It's going to be the largest or the deepest port in Nigeria, or in West Africa actually, has a draft of 14.8 meters, and we'll be able to launch mother vessels. Now that will be able to rejig the entire economic or commercial structure going on around Bakassi, provide employment, provide job opportunities, as well as multiplier effects in terms of business opportunities for the people of the area.
Awesome, awesome. That's very applaudable. And I'm glad you talked about the deep sea port. Israeli company Broad Spectrum Industrial Services pledged to donate or to finance.
Not donate.
Finance. Finance. 500 million euros. 500 million euros to infrastructural development in Cross River State. Yes. So what areas is this going to cover? We're
targeting the deep sea port and the superhighway. The superhighway is an evacuation corridor which links the deep sea port to the northernmost part of Cross River, which borders with Benue State. The idea is to create the port and create an evacuation corridor which will serve the north of Nigeria as well as even the landlocked nations to the north of Nigeria. This is, it's not a pledge, obviously, it's not a donation, it's an investment they are trying to do. In the meantime, we've started doing some of the preliminary works at both sites, and we've gotten to a certain point. We commissioned and we've gotten the EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment, on both projects, and we are currently in the phase waiting for approval before we can commence construction.
So it's a PPP, a public-private partnership. Okay, it's definitely not a loan.
No, it's not.
It's not a debt.
No, it's not.
So Professor Ben Ayade is not going to leave Cross River State indebted to, okay.
You see, the thing about it is we've realized that we don't have that much capacity to take on any more debt obligations. So we're trying hard to think outside the box. We're bringing up the enabling environment, most of our resources, and we're saying to the private sector to partner with the public sector. That is more or less the vision of His Excellency, the Governor. What we've decided in Cross River is that government doesn't necessarily have any business in business, but we can have a stake of a business.
Repeat that. Government doesn't have any business in business.
Running a business.
Okay.
Yeah, but we should have a stake in a business so as to generate income for the state.
So promoting more PPPs across.
Promoting more PPPs, providing that structure. And what we've done so far, we've built a very robust Bureau of Public-Private Partnership headed by a professional. We've put up a lot of SPVs, structured them in such a way, and right now we're in the phase where we've put out the teasers and we're advertising for investors from the private sector to come in and partner with us to deliver on this mandate. Okay,
what is it about Cross River States that you think is attractive to investors?
Well, wouldn't want to blow my own horn, but Cross River State is a tourism destination in Nigeria. It's peaceful. The people are loving, they are very hardworking, and they have a very warm welcome. You rarely hear of a crisis in Cross River. Beyond that, we feel that there's a choke point around some of the other areas in Nigeria, and Cross River State is geographically blessed. From the mountains in Obudu to the creeks in Bakassi, we are blessed with wonderful mineral resources, hardworking people, and very arable land. So we find that we will be a very choice investment destination for any worthy investor.
And speaking about arable land, you have very arable land for rice farming in Cross River State. Also, Cross River is the second largest producer of cocoa in Nigeria.
Some would argue we're the first.
Yeah, the first.
We're number one.
According to statistics, is second.
Well, you see, sometimes our cocoa is taken out and then sold, and maybe processed, value added in other sectors, and then they are termed another region's cocoa. But ideally, I think if there's a lot more investigation done on this, we are number one in terms of
Okay, so
cocoa.
how is that impacting your economy and your ability to pay salaries in Cross River states?
What is that?
This being the largest, according to you, producer of cocoa and having fertile land for rice farming.
Okay, no, because you tied it to payment of salaries. The cocoa is a private thing, it's not like the government drives it. We usually allocate the plots out for private.
But the government gets some residues, some remittances being sent to the government, right?
That is true, but only at the process of when the land is allocated to you.
Okay, so how does that work? Explain that to me, actually, because I know my viewers will be interested in that. Yeah. So a private investor comes into Cross River States and they ask the government to provide land for them. Okay, and how does it work? What's the
what happens is
to people of Cross Rivers?
Well, what happens is there's an allocation process that goes on, and then arable land for cocoa is allocated to people that meet the criteria, and then some sort of a fee is paid for the land for the planting season, and then it reverts back to government controlled over some time. But what we've decided is we've come to a time in the history of our nation when we shouldn't just pluck things out of the ground and sell it or export it. We need to add value. We can't be, growing cocoa, cultivating cocoa, and then importing, processed cocoa. It doesn't make any sense. We can add value by setting up cottage industries or even full-scale plants to do this, and that is where we are looking at. One of our major SPVs, or one of the major projects we are driving, is the cocoa processing plant, which is built along this model where we would offtake from the local farmers, add value, and sell to the local manufacturers who use processed cocoa as an input in Nigeria, as well as to export outside the country, earning the state even some forex.
More money. What's your internally generated revenue?
What, you want to know the figure?
Yes, the exact figure.
You see, that question, it's never a pinpoint because it ranges. Sometimes, and some of our IGR is generated from the quarries, and during the dry season, it peaks. During the rainy season, it drops. But
so for like the month of June?
It ranges anywhere between 1.5 to about 2 billion.
2 billion, okay. Let's take a break and we'll be right back on the Osasu Show.
Talk about youth inclusion. We're not talking about entitlement or gratification. Personal development is important. Knowledge, intellect, a deliberate effort to develop oneself. The new generation that we seek in politics must be competent and credible.
I look forward to the day in this country when I will enter a portal and I'll be like, I pay my taxes. Why is this portal here? And I sue the government. I say, you must repair my car. I had trauma when I entered the hospital. My heart jammed. I started having headache. You must pay for it. I was working for an appointment. I was supposed to sign a deal of 3 million. You must pay for it.
That constitution was handed down as a military-made constitution, but at least it is the constitution on the basis of which you have the democracy. The democracy may be nascent, it might be fleshly, it might not even be real democracy, it might be pseudo-democracy. In any way that you will find it. But it is democracy nonetheless.
Over 80% of Nigerians are not corrupt. Personally, I manage a grant of over $500,000 annually. For now, I know it will go higher, inshallah. And I have never stolen one of that money, and I can account every penny of that fund.
A lot of politicians today obviously strive for political positions when they're in their late 50s, late 40s. So young people don't see that as something that's achievable for them. But I think that's why we have a forum like this, a conference like this, to start shaping the perspective of young people.
Create easy platforms to celebrate young people, either in CSOs or in government, or corridors of government, doing something tangible.
because we didn't oppose President Muhammadu Buhari. It is the age of his ideas that we oppose. Because we knew that his friends are old people.
I'm not going to respond to that. The age of my president is not his problem that he's 73 years old. Nigerians voted for a trusted man of integrity and he's going to deliver. Only constitutionally recognized vehicle for political attainment is a political party. It's either young people will bring themselves together, 66 million of us, form a political party, go against everybody else, but you can never discuss politics in Nigeria without a political party.
Welcome back to the Osasu Show. Still with me is the Commissioner of Finance in Cross River State, Mr. Asuku Ekbayong. Thank you so much for sitting tight.
No problem.
Okay, so your state has successfully been able to meet their salary requirements, I guess. They've been able to pay salaries unlike the other states. What do you think differentiates your state from the others?
Fiscal discipline. What we try to do is you have to weigh every expenditure. Is it necessary? Is it going to increase revenue? Is it going to be a waste? So that's the question you ask yourself when you're spending. We've focused and we've been able to hone our ability to be more effective and more efficient in our expenditure. Cross River State has traditionally, since the start of this administration, paid salaries as at when due. In fact, we usually pay salaries on the 22nd of every month. One of very few states to be up to date with salaries. And I tell you what, actually, for May 1st, as a reward to the hardworking staff of the civil service, we paid a salary advance. So after we had paid the April salaries a couple of days before, on May 1st, Labor Day, we paid the May salary in advance. And what that does is it gives you a more hardworking civil service. They are more energetic, more willing to put their resources on the line to deliver on the mandate of the administration. Our ability to do this is not that we are more blessed in terms of allocation from the center, but what we do is we manage our resources. Under His Excellency Senator Professor Ben Ayade, there's been a very controlled management of financial resources, and I think we're doing a good job.
Okay. There have been recent calls for the restructuring of Nigeria, giving the states more power to their resources, their natural resources, and their finances in general. What is your take on this? Do you think Nigeria needs to be restructured?
I think there comes a time when you have to ask yourself, do you keep going to the center with your cap out, asking for allocations or bailout, or do you give people the ability to run their own government or their own state, their own boundaries? I think I am for the increased allocation of control of resources to the various states, because the truth is, when you do that, the control and the management of those resources reside with the state, and so it is up to the state to manage that as effectively or as efficiently as possible while still remitting something to the center. I believe that if that had been done, the current problems or the current challenges we are facing in Nigeria, with the drop in oil price and even the oil output, may not have been faced, because states would have taken that very concrete steps to diversify itself from, waiting for oil allocation and building up its own natural resources so as to earn a higher level of revenue from them. So I think I am for the control by the states.
I think you're saying that because your internally generated revenue is in the billions. You have states who generate maybe 200 million.
But that's the thing. I don't think that there's any state in Nigeria that cannot be fiscally autonomous in the sense that if a state had to and seriously looked inwards, they have the resources, they have the manpower, they can go into whatever they are blessed with, whatever comparative advantage they have, and generate revenue to cover their overheads and their expenses. There is no state, but the minute you always act like a father and you say, come for pocket money every month, then people will rest on their laurels because you're providing for them. And at the point when your income drops and you can no longer provide for, the states and the local governments, then you start to have a challenge on your hand. I believe that every state in Nigeria is financially viable.
And every state, you think, if they have that ability and autonomy, would be able to pay salaries?
Yes.
You think so?
I believe so. Okay. And they will give them more control and more discipline because their fate is in their hands. Right now, most of the states that aren't paying salaries are just turning around and pointing to the center and saying the allocation has dropped. But when it's your responsibility to build the revenue, to build the income, to pay those salaries, then you'll even be more effective or more efficient, even your hiring process, because you only hire people that can add value and you streamline and try and have some sort of lean management or lean workforce.
Okay. And you think that's going to translate to more jobs and more economic growth?
In the short term, it may not, but in the long term, it will, because what you do is now what is happening in some states is almost like you're subsidizing the workforce from the federal level, because some people are being employed just so that they are employed without necessarily having what to do.
I see. Okay, so what's the budget for, switching gears a little, what's the budget for the health sector in Cross River states?
It's about 50 billion.
50 billion, okay. Are there any key infrastructures that Professor Benayade is going to build or plans on building in the near future?
What we're doing is we're working on a specialist hospital. We're looking to this to drive medical tourism. It's something that was started by the last administration and which we hope to complete, amongst other things. This Calabar Specialist Hospital is the name. It's going to be an international world-class hospital. And the idea is the amount of forex that is spent by residents of Nigeria going out and looking for medical attention can now be focused inwards, and then people drive or travel to Calabar, have the best or world level service in terms of medical attention, and then we retain some of our earnings.
Awesome. What of education?
Education, there's a lot of focus on this administration. Recently, His Excellency Senator Professor Benayade came in from Canada, where he had sealed an MOU with a Canadian international school, where the terms are for the state government to partner with the school to bring a high level of education, as well as bringing in their resources to kind of drive, well, once again, education, tourism,
medical tourism, education tourism.
Medical tourism is a thing. I don't know if
education is definitely the tourism hub.
Destination. I mean, that's what we are called, destination Cross River State, and I mean, we attend the people with the warmest welcome. So, well, aside from the education and medical, tourism is in fact one of our major pillars of the economy of the state. I'm sure you're very well aware of the Calabar Carnival, the annual event which happens every year.
Sorry, how much does that carnival gross in a year?
In excess of $1 billion. It's a one-day event.
Yeah. Oh, it's a one-day event. Wow, I thought it was actually for a span of a few days.
No, so people make that's a common misconception. There's the Calabar Festival, the Christmas festival, which is like shows, cultural shows, traditional shows, music events and concerts. But the carnival is actually a one-day event.
I see.
That's the one that's tagged Africa's biggest party.
Wow.
Street
there
party.
Are other festivities going
on
before
events,
that.
Exactly. So it's a countdown from the 1st of December to the 2nd of January. But the carnival itself traditionally occurs on the 27th of December.
And that carnival itself grosses over $1 billion.
Yes, from sponsorship, from TV rights, etc., from media buying.
That's why you can pay salaries, right?
That's one event.
Yes. Do you have any final words to our viewers?
Well, I think most important is to say you're welcome to Cross River State, one of the friendliest states, one of the states that is at the front guard of developing the Nigerian economy through diversifying its base from the oil sector. And we'd like to welcome you to Cross River State at any point in time, and hope to see you in December especially.
Mr. Asuku Ekbengon, Commissioner of Finance for Cross River States, thank you so much for your time. To find out more information on Cross River State, you can visit my website, www.theosasushow.com. You can also follow us on social media at The Osasu Show on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, Take very good care of yourself.